Hello, welcome to your mythology guide. Today we're going to be talking about primordial beings in Greek mythology. Greek mythology is one of the most famous mythology known in the world, or the most famous mythology known in the world. But everybody knows about Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, the Olympians, Aphrodite, Hermes, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, many of them. However, nobody or it hasn't really been explained, at least that I've heard of, how they came to be, how the Greek religion or the mythology explain how their gods came to be, what created the universe, what created the world, things like that. So, ignoring everything that everybody knows about the Greek gods, which is what you can see in books, in movies, even on the internet. I would like to speak more about the past, what came before, what happened before, how the world was created, how Zeus came to be, and that would be pretty much it.
So we start with what was there. What was the world without the world? What instigated the creation of the world? So according to Hesiod's Theogony, sorry for my pronunciation, around 700 BCE, which could also be considered like the standard. This myth could be considered the standard creation myth for the Greeks. It tells the story of Genesis of the gods. After invoking the Muses, Hesiod tells the story of the first generation of primordial deities, which those generations are not in order, not in any particular order. They are Phanes or Phanes, which is the order, primordial being, Chaos, which is the void, the emptiness, Thalassa or Thalasia, which is the first waters, the sea, Gaia, which is the earth, Mother Earth, Uranus or Uranus, which is the sky, Aurea, which is the first mountains, the first primordial beings of the mountains, Pontus, the sea, the actual calm and or not even that calm sea. We have Tartarus, the underworld, the pit where it's below everything. Erebus, which is the darkness. As I was saying, we have Erebus, the darkness. Nyx, the night. Darkness and night are different. Darkness, it will be the representation, the actual representation of darkness. And then Nyx, the night, is will be the night sky. Then we have either, which is the light, the representation of light within the world. As I was saying, then we have Ether, which is light, and Hemera, which is day. And then we have a little one that's controversial sometimes, which is Eros. Eros is the god of love, but he is sometimes in later myths, as the myth evolved, um, he was called the son of Aphrodite and Ares. So, like mythology as it is itself, it's hard to tell exactly what's correct. It's different texts, different points in history. So at this point, it's basically up to the listener or the reader. If you like Eros as the primordial, first generation of primordial beings, that's amazing. If you like the stories or the myths when he's the son of Aphrodite and Ares, that's a perfect myth too. So those are the first generation, the first, for lack of a better word, family of primordial beings. Those are the ones that created the world. Um, there's other sources and other primordial beings such as Achilles or Achilles, misery, Ananke, which is compulsion. You have Kronos, not Kronos, the father of Zeus. Kronos, which is time or the lord of time. Sometimes both of them are confused because they're very similar. There's even um, myths in which both of them are the same. But again, it depends on your perspective and what myths you like more and so on. Then you have Phanes, which is procreation. Ion, which is eternity, is the definition, the personality of eternity. Nesoi, it's basically landscapes, mountains. The Morai, which are the three fates of that you see him in the Disney movie of Hercules, etc. And Moros, which is doom. Um, those are like the second family of primordials, you could call them. Okay, so now we go on to the myth of creation. In Jesus' creation, Chaos is the very first being to ever exist. He ruled in the void when there was nothing. He's also sometimes being seen as a deity and also a thing, the void, the emptiness. Um, Sometimes he's also seen as the gap between heaven and earth. Um, it all depends. Some account says that Chaos coexisted at the same time of Eros and Nyx, or Nox, but some of them also say that Chaos was the first and only being. So that's the story that I like the most, or the myth that I like the most. So um, I like to tell it that way. There's also stories where Chaos is supposedly it's a realm or a void that exists beneath Tartarus. Um, it all depends what myth you like the most. Gaia is the second being to be born right after Chaos. And then the both of them give birth to what could be called heaven, and then um, the seas and the mountains that created the world, according to the Greek mythology, the Greek mythos. Um, Gaia has been had many names. One of them is Terra or Tellus in the Roman mythology. Um, and then the heaven, it's called Uranus or Uranus. He has a very quite interesting mythology around him. He is the father of the Titans, Kronos, and the other Titans. He is the father of them. I will do a video on him later on and his lineage, pretty much, of Kronos, of Kronos' dad, Uranus, and the myth what happened to him, what caused the great prophecy or of the children who killed the father, stuff like that. Each of the other primordial beings had children, specifically Nox or Nyx. Her children are the Morai, the Fates, Clotho, Lesis, and Atropos, the three ladies with the one eye that they share their eye. You also have Achilles, which is Sorrow, Hypnos, and Thanatos, the popular, sometimes depicted as twins, the right and left hand of Hades in the underworld. Hypnos being the god of sleep and or peaceful sleep, and Thanatos being the god of the death, a peaceful death. You have the Hesperids, which is the sunset, is spelled Hesperides, kind of hard to pronounce, but stuff like that. You have Nemesis, the famous Nemesis goddess. She is the goddess of revenge. You have Ares, which is the goddess of strife or discord. Ares is the one with the apple of Ares that created discord among gods and many other heroes in the myth. You have Apate or Apathy, which is deceit. Oasis, misery, Moros, doom, as I covered before. You have the Oneroi. The Onerois are the dreams. Sometimes they're depicted as Hypnos children, but they all kind of they go on the family tree to Nox or Nyx. Um, they're basically the dreams, the creatures that give dreams according to the Greek mythos. You have Philotas, which is affection, Gareas, which is old age, Charon, not Chiron, Charon, the ferryman of the death, the one that has in the boat and guided the dead soul from the river Styx to the underworld. The Keres, which is the violent death, sometimes demons. You have Momus, which is depicted as mockery, that's making fun of some kind of hateful thinking. And then Hecate or Hecate. She is the goddess of magic and crossroads. She's very famous in the Greek myth. there were many temples to her, many worshippers to her at all. She is famous in many of the heroes, Greek heroes' lores. She's one of the most, along with Hypnos and Thanatos, of the children of Nox or Nyx. Um, Ares is prominent. Hypnos, Thanatos, Charon. I mean, who doesn't know Charon, the ferryman? Hecate, Nemesis is very prominent too, and of course the Mirai, the three ladies with the eye. That's the best way that I can call them. Um, Tartarus, it's complicated. He is a primordial deity, but he's also the abyss that lies beyond the underworld, the deepest part of the underworld that Stardust. Um, he's seen as a prison sometimes. That's where the Titans were in prison, which I'll do that in another video or audio. Um, but however, Tartarus in some myths, it said that that's where day, night, sleep, and death they dwell there. Um, he's a version of a realm. That's how they would. Um, that's how where they would do it. Tartarus is also described as being something an abyss, something so deep that when the Titans were thrown into it, they couldn't escape. Um, Styx, which is another goddess of another primordial being, and Erebus, the god of darkness, or the primordial being of darkness, also are said written to reside on Tartarus. Um, Primordial beings don't really have much of, I guess, myth or mythology um, with them. The biggest story is the one with Uranus and Gaia, which I would do a whole summary, a whole video on them. Since this is the first video, I just wanted to give a really good introduction to this. I would not only be covering Greek, I'll be covering as much of the mythologies as I can. I do have studied them a lot and read about them a lot. Went to school for it, so I feel like I could some knowledge that I could share, perhaps like a point of view that not many people have shared. So this would be the shortest video that I've done, and hopefully by the next one I can do a longer deep dive on primordial beings and of course the story of Uranus and the Titans, Kronos. Thank you.